Okay, today going to do an oil change. Fairly straightforward. Let's get it up on the ramp, up high, and get underneath. First thing I need to do though, take the oil cap off, pull the dipstick out a little bit, just to make sure that it's, when the oil's dropping, doesn't cause a vacuum and resist coming out. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, right, so the car's up in the air. When I mentioned before taking the oil cap off and the dipstick, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference, but you could end up with a bit of a vacuum where you're not allowing the oil to drop as quickly. So just for what it takes, just undo the cap. You're going to have to take it off anyway, and it'll let the oil drain out nice and freely. So I've got all the stuff on the floor here, which you're going to need. The car's up on the ramp. If you don't have access to a ramp, you're not as lucky as me with that, then you're going to need to jack it up or put it on axle stands. There are plenty of videos on how to do that safely. Please do it safely, because you don't want a car landing on your head. Anyway, here is the tools. I've got a bit of brake cleaner, something to wipe up excess oil. I've got the oil. I've gone for 530. Now that's what's rated for a 225 BAM. You can be flexible with that. You might want to use 540. There are various reasons, and lots of people have discussions about what's the best oil. I've gone with what's listed on the Volkswagen system, so that's what I've been using the last few years. I haven't actually changed the oil on this car since June 21, and that's because I don't really do that much mileage. I've maybe done a few thousand since then, but it's been sitting quite a long time. It's been sitting about 6 months since it's been driven properly. So I thought, for the cost, it's cost me about £42 for a genuine filter. All right, part number is on the top there, and Sump plug and the washer which is attached to it. And you're going to need a 19mm to take the Sump plug off. It's done up to 30 Newton meters, which is not much. So I've got a torque wrench there, digital one. If you don't have a torque wrench, my advice to you is just don't go swinging on it. Just nip it up tight, but do not swing on it and cross thread the sump, otherwise you're going to have a bad day. I've got a little extension there, and I've got a T25. So the first thing to do is to use that and to take off the engine tray. So I'll start with that. I'll do a quick little overview actually, because I've had a few people asking me about how you take these off. They're not very difficult at all. So you've got T25s going around here to there, and you've got the same on this side, goes round to there. This is all going to be taken off and getting refurbished soon. I've already mentioned that for the subframe refurbishment. And then you've got these sort of fins that lock into the front sort of air guide underneath the radiator, so you'll need to pull it back and out of that. So it's not difficult at all, just take your time. If you're under the car and it's on axle stands, it can be a little bit tricky. You've got, don't forget, I nearly forgot that, you've got these screws. You only turn them halfway, just a quarter turn, and they'll pop out of there. They're just attached to the under tray. They're on both sides. Not the under tray, that's the under tray, the arch liners. So you'll need to take that off. And then it should just come away, and then you can gain access. So let's get set up and get that off. Okay, so now the under tray's off. You can see the sump plugs there. It's on the back of the sump. Just while I'm here, because there's been a little bit of between my friend and I about the oil level sensor Now, the last video that I did about the oil pressure sensor, which might cause the red oil can to flash up, as far as I'm aware, this can also give you a problem as well because it thinks the oil is non-existent. So the genuine sensor is made by Hella, and currently at the dealership they're about 170 quid. I checked the other day. Now, there is a crossover year, so up to 2001 on a BAM, the part number ends in B. 2001 onwards, it's C, but it's been superseded with F. So you'll need to get one with the F on the end if it's a 2002 BAM. Please do your own checks with your chassis code and things to make sure it's the right one. But that's maybe, you know, could be a culprit if you get the oil warning lights and things. And, you know, I've known one of the lads, Chris, he bought a cheaper one and he ended up changing it because it was leaking oil through the plug. So I'm going to leave this one for now. It's fine. I don't seem to be having any problems with it. But it's, you know, that's, you'd only need to undo those 3 bolts there and the plug to remove it. But you will need to drop the oil. So it is a good opportunity if you are doing an oil change and you're going to change that, do the 2 at the same time. The oil cooler is here and the oil filter goes into that. I've put a new oil cooler on, so that's why it looks nice and new. They can break down and the coolant mixes with the oil and can cause a right mess in your cooling system. So that's why I ended up changing that, but the oil filter screws into that, so I'll be taking that off as well. So I'll get the oil drain pan, so I don't make too much of a mess. We'll get this off, and we'll get the sump plug off, and we'll get the oil out. Right, I'm just going to leave that to drain. I'm in no rush time-wise, so I'm just going to leave the sump plug off, leave the oil filter off for 20 minutes, half an hour. I'm just going to let it drip its way out. You're never going to get every little bit out, so giving it a little bit of time if you're in no hurry, there's no harm, and then you can start putting it back together. Okay, so it's been left just to drip its way out for about half an hour or so while I've been getting on with something else. So I'm going to put the sump plug in, nip it up, and then torque it to 30 Newton meters, and then we'll look at the filter, the oil filter. Okay, with a little bit of oil in the filter and a little bit of oil around the seal, I'm going to offer it up now through that gap and onto that spline. Just there, you are going to lose a little bit of oil, especially if you overfill the oil filter. And then just by hand, let it find its place and screw it onto the oil cooler. And then you just want to hand tighten it. Now, my hands are a little bit slippy here, so I'll dry everything off and just give it a little nip and clean everything up, but that's it. So the sump plugs on. Sump plugs on, tightened up 30 Newton meters, oil filters in position. Just need to clean it up, and then we need to put the oil in. So I'm going to leave the under tray off because I want to check for leaks. I'm sure they'll be fine, but it's good practice really. Check for leaks before you put the tray on. Looks good. Nothing leaking. Perfect. Right, that's it done. If you're going to do that, just make sure you put the sump plug back in and the oil filter's on properly before you fill it up. Otherwise you'll have a pool of oil at the bottom and that won't be very nice. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Any questions or comments or anything, pop them in the comments box at the bottom.